We have the Zoom meeting on, we are connected. Is there anybody attending by Zoom that you know of?
Yes, 3.
Okay, we have 3 attendees on Zoom. So I trust you all had a quick chance to get a donut and a coffee. And I will call this meeting to order. This is a follow-up to a meeting we had 6 weeks ago already on September 7th. And the agenda is we're gonna quickly recap where we were on September 7th, what was presented then. We're gonna share new information with you. Brian's gonna talk about the information we received about our stained glass windows and how that affected the recommendation we made in September, and what you're going to see today. And then we will go into and explain the recommendation and what the vote will consist of. And then we will proceed to vote. So. You go to the next slide, Tristan. That's what I just told you about. This would be then the slide 3, the next slide, Tristan, please. Okay. So in September, we came and proposed total cost. We gave 2 options. And the difference was whether we were the general contractor or if we employed a firm like Jarowski to be the general contractor, but it was somewhere between $175,000 to $200,000. It was to include carpet and asbestos abatement on the whole first floor, ceiling repair, the ceiling tiles that were damaged when we had a leaky roof. Interior paint, so the walls, painting of the walls. And then we put forward that we had limited information from one stained glass contractor that suggested we need to recaulk the exterior of our stained glass windows. And that's where we were at. And if you go to the next page, which is titled Congregation Feedback from September 7th. The big takeaways were general agreement that improvements were needed, but there was a lot of concern expressed about how to fund the project, especially when our giving is behind budget. There was an expression to a desire from the congregation on that day for unbundling the projects and or prioritizing them to spread out the cost over time. And there was a request that this be a formal recommendation that was approved by church council. So we went about addressing each of those concerns from September 7th. The committee met a couple of times. The committee revised the recommendation based upon new input and brought it to the council. And as you'll see, the council then acted on it. And I think this is where Brian gets up to describe the new information that we heard about. Is that, make sure that mic is on. Everybody hear me? Okay, put it up. Close. There you go. That works? Yeah.
All right, we had 2 contractors, Vanderhoff Studios from Melrose, Wisconsin, and Willett Stained Glass Studios from Winona, Minnesota. Both of them felt that the stained glass windows were in fairly good shape. None of them needed rebuilding at this point. Both felt that on the interior, we needed to remove all of the interior storm windows. Reason being, it does not let out the condensation or the heat. So it gets trapped between them. It has caused bulging in fewer windows. And if that would continue, we'd end up rebuilding the windows. We have very different approaches on the outside. Vanderhoff Studios wanted to replace the existing caulking and re-cement or re-glaze the storm windows. And that cost came in at approximately $40,000, which was a verbal estimate. And I don't think we've seen anything in writing yet. We have.
We have
We
not.
have not, okay. Willett Glass or Willett Stained Glass Studios. They wanted to remove existing storm windows. Re-caulk, re-cement. Re-cementing stained glass is not like taking concrete, just, fixing the concrete around the stained glass. Re-cementing is a process of linseed oil-based putty. They go in and they apply it to the window and tighten glass into the lead that came. It preserves the integrity of the window and it makes it more weatherproof. So they recommended doing that along with, once the old storms are off, to replace them with a clear flow perimeter frame and a protective acrylic storm window, to put it bluntly, I guess. And those, the clear flow system allows expansion and contraction. There are plugs in them similar to a color window system that let the heat out, but don't let moisture in. And there are a few bulges and broken glass pieces that were identified that they would be replacing. But that cost came in at $80,000. So with those differences in costs, we really didn't know a direction which way to go at this point. So the revised recommendation for the committee was to present the carpet, asbestos abatement, and the ceiling tile priority over the stained glass windows. The assumption is that the stained glass windows are gonna need repair in the future. So it's gonna come down the road. So we can wait 2 to 3 years. We've had these storm windows on here for, I don't know, maybe 20 years, maybe. Yeah. We were thinking about taking one off just to see how bad the glass is, if it moves in the cane. We can tell that. And we'd also be able to see what kind of air leakage we do have. In the rear of the church, nobody can see it, other than the guys that have been up there on the property committee over the years. If you go behind the pipe organ, there's quite a collection of ladybugs in the bottom of the one storm, so somewhere along the line, that window is not sealing. So we have recommended 2 options for the carpeting and asbestos abatement. And like I said, the stained glass is going to have to come down the road. And once we learn more information, we'll probably share it. Thanks.
Any questions for Brian? Then if you go, Tristan, to the next page, which is the sanctuary upgrades revised proposal. Yep, that one. What we are, as Brian just described at a high level, this is details. We're proposing replace the following upgrades. To replace the ceiling tiles in the affected areas at the top of the ceiling. The estimated cost there was 12,000, that will be done by, likely by, Bill Jarowski. And then there's two options for the carpet. The first option is to replace everything in the first floor. So the sanctuary, the red carpet, the narthex, the stairs, the stairway out here, Christina's office. I think Greg's office carpet is in reasonable shape, so that would probably be excluded. And then the last part would be in the sacristy here. That's the entire first floor. And to do that, we estimate, so if you look under the estimated cost for option one, it's 52,500. The second option is basically a partial replacement. So just the red carpet, just the sanctuary. So you bring in, we remove all the, take out the carpet, do the abatement, but just in the sanctuary area. In other words, we leave the narthex, office area, and the sacristy alone. Both options would replace the carpeting in the choir loft and the stairs leading, the portion of the stairs leading up. So the choir loft is that bad, that no matter what we decide today, church council will do that project. It's about a $5,000 project to do the choir loft and the stairs leading up to it. So option one and option two on your slide both include the choir loft and the stairs. The difference is option one does everything on the first floor and the stairways. Option two only does the sanctuary, the red carpet. And that results in a difference in the cost of the abatement, which we've estimated, and in the cost of the carpet. If you look at the difference in the totals, option one is a total of 97,000. Option two is a total of 81,500. So a difference of $15,500 between options one and two. Any questions about that? And then the next slide just is next page is just a couple of comments on that as you're voting, should weigh in your mind is, first of all, the committee would need to go back and verify the cost savings. But I think they're pretty close. And then just need to weigh in your mind, what is the benefit of saving $15,000 today versus, and if we choose to do that, at some point in the future, when the narthex carpet and the office area and the sacristy are done, you'll have to bring in and abate the asbestos again. So there is that will be a cost that we would pass on to a future project. And then just the aesthetics, there will be brand new carpet in the parts and old carpet, but that's just an aesthetics issue. So that's the revised recommendation. And I think Sigrid, you were going to then introduce. Yes. You had some. You had some.
Before I go on in the slides, Pastor Greg, who was at continuing education this weekend, he's not visiting with friends. He could not reschedule his continuing ed. So he has asked me to read the following message. Dear friends, as you gather this morning to listen, pray, and vote, please know that I am praying for you and am with you in spirit. I am grateful every day to be called here to work among you. This congregation has a long history of serving the Lord through faithful service to others. The work that has been done through this congregation over the years is nothing short of remarkable. The saying is sure, you will not impact the world by faithfully going to church. You will impact the world by faithfully being in church and service to others. The church is not a building. The church is not this building. We are the church. However, our church building is an outward visible sign of God's presence. It is a sign to all who enter and worship. It is a sign to all who simply drive by. God is present. Our care for this building is a direct reflection on the importance of God in our community. Here too, this congregation has a long history of diligent, faithful care and pride for our building and grounds. We, as well as those who came before us, are to be commended. This morning, you have an opportunity to vote on recommended upgrades to this building. No matter your vote, please take time to thank the committee members, council members, and leaders for their hard work on this project. Especially our council president, John, who has spent innumerable, not only on this particular effort, but on so many other things for our church. We are blessed with honest and loyal council members who lead with integrity. To that end, I encourage you to vote not only with your pocketbooks, but with your faith. God has greatly and consistently blessed this congregation, and there's no indication that God will stop now. Standing on a firm foundation of faith, we look to the future. God is present. Blessed along with you, Pastor Greg. So now we will move on to slide 9. The church council met on October 7th and approved the recommendations from the Sanctuary Upgrades Committee as described on the previous slide number 7. These actions reduce the proposed project to ceiling repair in the sanctuary and 2 options for carpet replacement, which would include asbestos abatement from the underlying floor tiles. Again, ceiling repairs in both options for approval, while carpet replacement is more limited in the second option. If you will look at the sample ballot on slide 10, you will see that option 1 includes the ceiling repair, the asbestos abatement for the tile under the carpet, and replacement of all carpet. The total cost for option 1 is projected to be $97,000. If you choose this option, the council has stipulated that 50% of project costs will be raised prior to initiating the project, and the church finances will be current. In option 2, the ceiling repair remains, but carpet replacement is limited to the sanctuary, choir loft, and stairs to the choir loft, with related asbestos treatment abatement. With this limited approach to carpeting and asbestos abatement, together with the ceiling repair, option 2 is estimated at $81,500. With this option, the council has stipulated that 60% of funds will be raised prior to initiating the project. And again, church finances must be current. Option 3 needs no explanation. Your no vote means you do not support the project as presented. With that, I will give the floor back to John. You can answer any questions that remain.
So did everybody pick up a ballot? Voting members? Tommy, are there any left? If you need a ballot, just raise your hand. Brian needs a ballot. Anybody have one of them here? Guess I need one. And Tristan, very soon you can give the online voters their whatever it is, poll to vote. But here's the ballots, identical to what is on the screen. And all you need to do is circle 1, 2, or 3, whichever is your vote. And then I guess we'll pass them. Question from Rachel. Sure, yes, questions first.
You know, like, who's gonna be the general? Are we doing that? Are we hiring somebody? If we're doing it, who's gonna be that key person? So it's not like 3 or 4 people and things get dropped, or, you know what I'm saying is, how do we make sure we got?
Good question. We're not gonna go with a general. We didn't think with just basically 2 projects that we needed the expertise and the coordination that a guy like Bill would bring to the project. I guess right now I would be the central contact and, you know, be the coordinator, the project manager, if you will, to make sure that, because this will be a disruption to worship. The other thing that we have baked into this was in one of the bullet points is that we are assuming that we can get volunteers from the congregation to move all of the furniture out of the sanctuary. That will be a big job, but we feel we can save some money by doing a little bit of sweat equity.
That's what I was gonna ask about, what do we expect?
Moving the furniture, and we priced out some, what are they, pods, Brian? That would be placed in the parking lot somewhere. So we would endeavor to move, I think we figured 5 pods should hold most of the pews, which is the biggest part, but when you start looking around, there's a lot of like that big cabinet and obviously the altar furniture, and there's lots of stuff in here. Or no painting, we deprioritized that because of the feedback that we got. You talking about the ceiling? No, the wall painting was deprioritized. That was a rough, it was somewhere in the, depending, we got a range of quotes from like 45 to like 90,000, and so at roughly, we thought the most likely bid would have come in at around 70. We deprioritized that for now, based upon September 7th. Yes, we have Chris is asking, have we accounted for the cost of the pods? And we built that in. The cost, just to avoid the amount of detail. Tristan, if you go back to the slide 7. 2 more back, yep. Okay, so price includes $6,500 for furnishing, removal, and storage. So that's baked into what we call the price for the carpet.
So you mentioned Bill's gonna help with the ceiling part,
Yes.
right? And then the carpet will be installed by a carpet person, not us though, that's not where our sweat equity comes into, okay, I just wanna make sure. I think that's.
Well, actually, there's 3 contractors. there would be, Bill has given us. Very early on in the project, an estimate to do the ceiling tiles. And that would basically replace, we hope, just the first 2 rows along the length of the sanctuary here. And then he would have to do some color matching. With the replacement, and that is an assumption. If Bill gets up there and he finds a lot of stuff rotting, or who knows, we don't know exactly. The price that he gave us is, hey, we come in, we basically take them out, we put new ones in, we match the color. The second contractor then will be asbestos abatement. They come in, they take out the carpet, they set up their containment, and they remove the tile that's underneath. And then the carpeting contractor would come in and do what's called a encapsulation. So we would not remove the glue. We would take out the tiles, the glue would still be there, but they encapsulate the asbestos that's in the glue with a special compound that the carpeting contractors know how to do. And then the third contractor is the carpet person, and we figure most, we don't have colors picked out, we don't have styles of, but what we had priced out was kind of a roll carpet down the aisle and probably on the steps in the altar area, and then the remainder would be carpet tiles. So that if you have damage to one, you can easily pull them up and replace it.
The whole if the church is current in the county.
What does? Yeah. So Rachel's question is, what determines and who determines current finances? And so church council would be responsible for that. And basically what that means is, right now, what's not current in our finances is we haven't paid all of our benevolence through each quarter. And so our finances would not be current if we had $50,000 in the bank, which meets the criteria of 50% of the project funds, but we're behind on our benevolence by $5,000. Okay? Or any other bill that's out there. Which is always gonna happen. I personally don't like this stipulation, it sets a precedent. But it's what we as a council determined was the will of the congregation at this point, given the economic situation out there. So we've never done that for a capital project that, to my knowledge, I'm not here, haven't been here for many years, but where you say, okay, you can't start until, which basically means you're gonna. So Rachel is saying that a difference in this case is that we haven't been behind on that. We haven't struggled with paying, well, we did, last couple of years we have. Yeah. Yeah.
You found me current taking money from capital funds to pay the bills, even though so they're all current.
No, I don't. We do need to dip into that account, and we need to budget differently next year. We dip into that capital improvement fund when, so we don't have to take out a loan, but that, to your point, that should not be considered current in your finances. But what I'm saying is that capital improvement fund is used for when we need $2,500 for a drainage project that we feel has to be done because it's the integrity of the building that's at stake. Or we have a lawnmower that trips something and it's a $2,000 repair. You know, that kind of. The parking lot was another one, but to Andrew's point, we have used the capital improvement fund during the summer to pay some of our bills. And that is not what that fund is intended for. That fund is for fixing items or projects like carpet and the like.
So the money that's done taken from the capital fund, do you consider it current once you put that money back, or before you put the money back in the capital fund? Or you just consider it borrowing from our own money?
Not sure.
So you're taking money.
I'd like to say we can pay it all back. I think my personal opinion is what's done is done, let's wipe the slate clean, and, you know, we have $20,000 in that account right now. We need to build that up to roughly 50,000 to start this project if you vote on it, and vote for approval. And from this point forward, you know, if our finances aren't current, even if we got 50,000 in the bank, we aren't gonna be able to start the project.
So our foundation water problem is solved.
I'd like to say yes. Certainly what the property committee did out here is a tremendous advance. And Kurt,
Heat truck on off the first main part of the road.
I was just going there, Donovan, if you want, yeah. Thanks.
So what was happening out here on the west side of the church was that there was some concrete laid out there alongside of the building. We think before they had eaves troughs on. And the idea was the water would come off the roof, hit the concrete and move away. For some reason, the soil raised in that area was built up or wasn't landscaped properly to begin with. So the water would never flow away. Back to that concrete that they laid all the way along the side of the building, that concrete was supported by sand underneath and it slowly dipped down and then actually acted like a trough to feed the water into the side of the church is what it did. So we removed all that, we pulled out a bunch of dirt, we re-landscaped it to push the water away. Also, in the meantime, eaves troughs have been added on a few years ago to help. But we're gonna put some additional downspouts and some work on the eaves troughs to then further get the water away with extensions away from the church. So we feel like we've really got a pretty good answer over here for them.
So no matter how we vote, the fire lock is gonna be done.
Yes, we need to do that. And there's no asbestos in the choir loft, that needs to be abated. So we can replace that. I hesitate only because I'm not sure about the partial stairway. That carpet is really bad. And I'm not sure if that has asbestos underneath that, but the choir loft itself has been checked and it is not asbestos containing.
Up there, if they get up there and decide that that can be clean. Is that a possibility?
Actually, we haven't asked that question. So that may be a question that we put to Bill, to see if it could just be clean.
Maybe or will?
Well, the problem with cleaning.
I will ask that question.
Okay.
Problem with cleaning tiles though is, because it's been there so long, even if you clean it a little, like, it'll look nice. But it's still in the tile and it would cause issues later, so I would probably was clean.
Yeah, I think it's a low probability. We can ask the question, see what Bill thinks about it. Yeah,
fix the problem that caused the mold?
Yes, I mean, most of that occurred when we had a leaky roof. Yeah, and I think we got all the leaks from the new roof stopped. We had one persistent one over here in the corner. But we finally tracked that one down and we have it taken care of. And that's also, Al, the purpose, Kurt mentioned. There's gonna be one section of eaves trough on the north end of the building that doesn't have any eaves trough right now. It's a flat section of the roof. But we think water comes over that, and with the right wind, it's just blown back against the wall. And so there's a window, if you walk up that stairs to the choir loft, where the top part of the window is clearly water damaged. And under that section, and so we think that'll take care of that.
I'm gonna beat the budget thing to death here, but based on what Andrew asked, I guess I wasn't sure on the answer, but. From the money that was borrowed from the capital fund. How much of that you're saying now that will not be paid back was non-maintenance capital money? That we're agreeing then would not be paid back. I just wanna make sure we're clear on how much of it that was.
Definition of capital. At our last meeting, we had that discussion, because when we did the parking lot, we considered it borrowing from the capital improvement fund. Okay, you're okay with that? Yeah. That was at our meeting, we discussed, this capital improvement line item is gonna be a permanent part of our budget. And what is a capital improvement? It's anytime you repair something, gonna be a capital improvement. Well, our constitution says the council can work as will up to $10,000, so that's the line we draw. Anything that is capital improvement would be an expense over $10,000. That's all I got.
I think your question was, of the amount that has been transferred from capital improvement to general fund. How much of that went to going for operations? You have that figure handy, Roseanne? Yeah, that's what I think that's what number kicks in my head, because we had 17,400 for the parking lot. There was geothermal repairs of about 1,400 or 1,500. There was a lawnmower repair of about 2,000. All of those were unplanned expenses that we used the capital improvement fund for. Yes. But I think there is about, I think your number is correct. There's about $9,000 this year, because we were short in giving, that we needed to transfer and use for everyday expenses.
Ultimately, if you decided to go over capital improvements, you didn't.
Just a second, we got a conversation.
So the 9,000 includes a couple things. I would say.
Yeah.
You really understand your conversation.
So the original question was, of the funds that have been transferred from capital improvement into the general fund, how much of that transfers went for just paying the electric bill and church salaries and things like that? So Roseanne is saying about $5,000 of those transfers. And Andrew, you had a question.
No, I was just stating, since we had this conversation and at the time we disagreed that some of that was capital improvements. So since the council has agreed that those are capital improvements, then ultimately, I don't think that you've actually borrowed any money from capital improvement because of the amount that you've taken. If you paid the amount from the general fund, but you took money from capital funds to cover a little amount you needed to finish the bill. So ultimately, since you decided that those three are capital improvements, then you really didn't borrow money from capital improvement, is what I'm saying. Based on when I was.
In those instances, that's correct, but some of the funds of the total that was transferred did go for things other than maintenance and repairs, okay? So it's around 5,000. If you look at how much we transferred, it's a bigger number, but it's because there were big things like the parking lot that it went towards. We haven't taken any of the capital improvement funds to pay our benevolence. But on the other hand, we're in arrears when it comes to benevolence right now. We simply have not paid our second quarter and third quarter benevolences. So that's where that's the biggest hole in the budget. That's the biggest hole that the biggest lever that we've used to keep church running is just not paying our benevolence, because we just haven't had the things to do it. Nathan.
How much of the cost of it?
So our benevolence is a total of $16,000 per year. So it's $4,000 per quarter. We try to pay that quarterly. And it's 5 main organizations that we give to, I think. Like the ELCA Synod, ELCA World Hunger, Lutheran Social Services, Luther Park Bible Camp, and one other, I think.
Just a question on when you were talking about council being able to approve up to $10,000 without congregation. Is that per instance in a budget year, or is that aggregate for the budget year?
I think it is. I'd have to go back and look, but Rachel is confirming. Yeah, but that would be a really shady finances if we pulled that trick. You guys would catch on to us too quick. Yeah, Rachel's saying that rather than approving 4 $10,000 projects, we should bring the whole thing, whole package, and have council weigh on the whole bill. Any other questions? Good ones, good questions. If not, I'll suggest that we proceed to vote. And who will collect the ballots? So maybe Dawn and Jean, can you guys collect the ballots, please?
really impressed with the church, reseal coating and painting parking.
Yeah, a lot of the people in the drive up line. Big
Great, that's a good venue. Well, and I'll just remind everybody that when we voted on that at the congregational meeting, you all said, get another estimate. So we went out and got another estimate, and that's the one that we had do the work, so. No, the congregation was, but it's kind of the same thing. Oh, yeah. Well, let's count the ballots. Tristan, can you queue up the, like slide 11, I think? And we'll talk about that after we tally the ballots. Well, let's talk about it right now. So. Yes, and they have Tristan has a poll that he signals to them, so. Do you get those votes, Tristan?
Yep, I tallied them and put that in.
Oh, you did, oh,
Yep.
okay. So the Zoom participants' votes have been gathered. Is there still 3 on it?
We have 5 right now.
5, okay, 5 on Zoom. So while we're waiting, I'm assuming we're gonna get. Otherwise, these are just wasted words, but. If options 1 or 2 pass, the next steps are to form a fundraising committee. And then. Start. Moving towards our goal. I will remind you that the next 3 weeks. There is a stewardship campaign that Pastor Greg will be leading us through, and some members of the council will participate in that as well. So we haven't done one of those in a while. And this is one that Pastor has used at a previous congregation. And so it'll just bring attention to the need to keep our giving going and consistent. But when we do get to finances meeting criteria, you know, there's a few steps that we need to do. We'll have to requote, because it's gonna take some months to raise money. But one of the big things that we came across when we visited St. Peter and Paul's of Independence. One of the most successful things that they did in their fundraising at St. Peter and Paul's was to reach out beyond the existing congregation. So to family members, friends, former members of the congregation who still might feel a connection to the community and in this church that might be willing to donate. So that's one of the items that this fundraising committee will try to orchestrate. And the other thing is, we do need to continue to investigate the best solution for the stained glass. So whatever we do now, that stained glass problem is not going to solve itself, and we can't put that off too long.
I think it was great the number of people we had for the church supper. But I was wondering how much of that money could be used for the project?
We're using the raffle proceeds, correct? The raffle proceeds were designated this year for, the capital improvement fund.
The committee sits down and divvies up the money afterwards, and last year I know we did 3,000 to capital improvement, and we'll probably take that into consideration. Again, is, something, worthy cause to give some of that money to.
So how much money was actually raised?
Well, it's a little early to tell. We have to pay our bills in that, it just happened Wednesday, but I know it's, with the harvest supper and the breakfast bake sale. I believe how many meals? 960. But we have a lot of donations for the, the meal, the ingredients to everything, and the costs. We usually do well. Last year we gave $13,300 in away to different charities and to the church. And we give several things in the church. We give to quilters, we've given to the elevator fund, we've given to, for maintenance to keep that up, we've given to the, like I said, $3,000 last year to the capital improvement fund. So, and then we did many local food pantries. I think last year we kind of focused on food pantries and Christmas giving from like the sheriff's department in like covering some of those things for our very local people.
Okay, when you say we, is this a ladies' aid or?
This is the Harvest Supper Committee.
Oh,
That's welcome.
Welcome.
It's welcome, not church.
Correct.
That's what that.
It's welcome.
okay, thank you.
Yep, and
Well,
then,
that's part of it, too.
Right, but it's welcome.
and then we bring it to our committee, the Harvest Supper Committee brings it to the welcome population. So I'm sure we will consider that again.
The total from that we made off the raffle tickets was $1,847.
Okay, looks like the ballots are in. Option 1 received 45 votes, option 2, 8 votes, option 3, 6 votes. So option 1, which is the full carpet replacement, is what we're gonna go forward with. Thank you. We will need, anybody interested in design and colors and all that kind of fun stuff, which I'm really terrible at, please come forward, because we will need that at the appropriate time. We have time to recruit you. With that, I think we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Carol, I have something.
Oh, I was just wondering, if people designate money for the capital improvement fund for their giving, will that money stay there? Or could it be used for expenses?
So. We don't have a carpet fund, we have a capital improvement fund. If you designate dollars for capital improvement, it goes into the capital improvement fund. And we will not use that. For church expenses, we will borrow from it, but we have to pay it back as part of the church finances being current. Oh, one other question.
Nope, just want to thank the committee and the council for doing all this hard work.